Right. Father, I thank you that we have the privilege of just being here today, God. And we know that you know our hearts, you know our situations, and you know exactly what we're going to be walking out from into after this service. And so, Father, I thank you that as Carol has prepared and as you have spoken to her and even just led her to this place today, God, I thank you that your Spirit would work through her, use her, and just speak into every single person's life and heart today in Jesus' name. I thank you for clarity. I thank you for revelation. I thank you for the peace of God that transcends all understanding. I just take authority over anything that will come and steal, kill, and destroy, or distract, or come and just steal this word. But Father, I thank you that as the word goes out, it will not return to you void, but will accomplish every single thing for which you've sent it. And I thank you, Father God, that you will have your way in this meeting today in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Carol.
Good morning, everyone. So nice to see new faces and have visitors here. I'm very excited about this special day, not about the fact that I have to be talking to you, but about being able to dedicate my very precious nephew, Grayston, later. Just to let you know, we will be bringing all of the kids back in once I've finished talking, so they can also be part of the dedication. So this morning I have the rather daunting but exciting opportunity to inspire you and encourage you, hopefully, in your parenting journey. But as I've said before, regardless of where you are or are not in your parenting journey, I hope you find something of value in what I share with you today. Parenting, at the end of the day, is about relationship. So the thoughts that I'm going to share with you hopefully will be just as applicable to a relationship with your spouse, a friend, work colleague, as it is to your relationship with your child. And for any of the young adults or teens that are sitting here, don't switch off, because you're the other side of the parenting relationship, and this might just give you some tips to take home to chat to your parents to encourage them and help them improve in their parenting skills too. So for those of you who don't know me too well, and are wondering about my child-related experience, I am a mom of soon-to-be 3 kids under the age of 5, wife to my wonderful husband Darren, who I think is desperately praying not to be outnumbered completely by girls in a few months' time. And I'm a qualified but not currently practicing play therapist. And I'm aiming to be God-centered in all of the above areas, really. But most importantly, just like for those of you who are a parent, I'm a trainee. I'm doing on-the-job work experience, and I feel like I'm going to be in this trainee position for the remainder of my parenthood years. I've decided to make this a part 1 to be continued message, just because as I sat preparing, I realized there is so much to share about this topic. And so hopefully today I'll be able to go a little bit deeper and not only share some head knowledge with you, but some practical tips and some heart knowledge as well. If I had to ask you what your number 1 parenting frustration is, I'm sure along with me, most of you would say something along the lines of, I just don't know how to get them to listen. They just don't listen. So today I thought I'd take us on a bit of a journey of how to find our kids' listening ears. I've titled my message Parenting Fruitfully. It might seem like the title is unrelated to listening, but please just stick with me. Before we begin, let me assure you that your child's poor listening skills are totally normal. Children learn by exploring and observing, and most of the time the things that we're asking them as parents to do are far more boring than what they're busy exploring. So why would they want to listen to us? A few weeks ago, after a day of way too many "Please will you just listen," and "Did you not hear what I just said?" I sat down to do a little self-analysis, as I sometimes do, to try and figure out why my kids both seemed to have just completely lost their listening ears and we could not find them anywhere. And as I sat trying to plan what I could do to make them listen, a rather challenging question popped into my mind. Kelly, How well do you listen to your girls? So, if you're a parent with a child who's lost their listening ears, I ask you the same question. How well do you listen to your child? We are our children's first teacher. Our children watch us, even when we think they're not paying attention to us. They learn how to engage with their world and with us by mimicking us. Our actions truly do speak louder than our words, even when we're yelling at them. As parents, our actions are always going to be reflected in our children's behavior, because children learn what they live. When we look at how Jesus taught, while he did talk and teach his followers and the thousands of people that gathered round to listen to him, I think it was his actions, his miracles, his gentle and kind one-on-one interactions with individuals that really touched the hearts of those around him. So keep that in mind as we look at some of the most common behaviors that tend to coincide with a loss of your children's listening ears. Children, and a lot of grown-ups actually, quite often, our behavior is a communication of a feeling or a need that we can't express through words. So when your 3-year-old falls on the floor screaming, or your 5-year-old backchats you, or your 7-year-old slams the door, it's their way of letting you know they are struggling and feeling overwhelmed by a very big feeling, and they have a need that urgently needs to be fulfilled. So let's take a look at some of the common behaviors that might push our buttons and what the need is behind the behavior. So kids who don't listen have usually been trained not to take us seriously unless we yell. They're asking us to calm down and connect with them. Kids who whine and are uncooperative either need more sleep, more connection with you, they might be unwell, or need a safe opportunity to cry. Kids who taunt and compete with their siblings need to feel more connected to their parents, need to feel more seen and valued for who they are as an individual. Kids who disrespect need connection, warmth, and respect from us. Kids who rebel need to feel more powerful, competent, and respected. They need us to listen and to let them know we hear, even if we don't agree with them. Kids who are bossy and controlling need clear and consistent boundaries to help them feel safe, but they also need to not feel over-controlled. Kids who lie need to feel safe with you and unafraid of your reaction in order for them to be able to tell you the truth. Kids who keep pushing the limits need to know that you as a parent are in charge and will keep them and everyone else safe while still loving them. You show them this by setting limits clearly and firmly, but with empathy and understanding of how they are feeling and their side of the story. Kids who lash out aggressively are carrying unbearable fear inside. This might be an emotional fear, not necessarily a fear of something specific. They need to laugh when they aren't in an angry state, and then when they feel safe enough, they need to experience that fear in your presence. It might look like a tantrum, but it will be followed by tears and then wanting cuddles and being more cooperative. So, there's just little Calvin, who I love, explaining to us the kid's mind. The underlying need in all of those behaviors that we looked at was connection with you. If your child doesn't feel connected to you, you're not going to see your child's need. Your child's not going to be able to communicate their need with you. And he's definitely not going to respond to your attempts to correct the behavior. We need to stay joyfully connected with our kids, which is something that I spoke about in one of my previous messages about parenting joyfully. Because connection has to happen before correction can. Once you've connected with your child, it's so much easier to get them to go the path that you would like them to. So now that you know what your child is trying to say to you, there's someone looking for their mommy. Now that you know what your child's trying to say to you through her behavior, what do? Well, you can either choose to react or you can choose to respond to the behavior. As parents, I think most of us want to deal with what feels like completely unacceptable behavior right there and then. We just dive right in with our rod of discipline. We want to make sure that we're teaching our child how to make good choices and to be obedient. But when your child is overwhelmed by an emotion, the thinking part of their brain just completely shuts down. They go into survival mode, which is often referred to as freeze, fight, or flight mode. And when they're in this mode, their higher brain functioning, which is responsible for learning, for reasoning, for self-control, all just goes offline. And their lower brain functioning, which involves instinct and physical reaction, takes over. As parents, often, despite our more advanced brain development, we also step into fight or flight mode. I know some days I either feel like screaming or just running away. So expecting our children to have the maturity and the self-control to be able to overcome this God-given survival instinct is unrealistic. Threatening them, punishing them, even trying to reason with them in that moment generally is pretty futile, and usually it just adds fuel to the fire and increases the tantrum, your child's and your own tantrum, as I'm sure we've all experienced. So what do they need in those moments? First off, they need help coping with that really big feeling that they don't know what to do with. Second, they need to reconnect with their source of safety, which is you. And then you can help them deal with the problem that caused them to feel emotionally overwhelmed to begin with. And that can only happen when everyone is feeling calm. So, going back to my little self-analysis moment that I had a few weeks ago, after realizing that I, once again, probably had a much greater role to play in my girls' lack of listening ears than they did, I felt really guilty, as we all do as parents. And then I thankfully had another realization. Well, actually, it was more like a gentle reminder. I don't have to, and I can't do this parenting thing all by myself out of my own strength. I'm so grateful that when Jesus left earth, he didn't just disappear and leave us to figure out life on our own. He left us with a very great helper, his Holy Spirit. And it took me a while to grasp that the Holy Spirit is just as real and relational and available to us as Jesus is. But once I realized it, I'm so grateful for his guidance every day. As an aside, we actually recently did a course in our midweek meetings called The God I Never Knew. And Robert Morris is amazing at explaining the Holy Spirit in such an easy way to understand. I highly recommend it. So yes, my aha moment. I began to question what I could do in my parenting rather than what I could make my girls do as children to help them find their listening ears. And I began to think about how God parents us. Psalm 46:1 tells us that God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. That's what I need to be for our girls. That's what we need to be for our children as parents, an ever-present help in times of trouble. But how? I'm a list girl. I love making lists. I find that lists help me focus and gain clarity when I'm feeling overwhelmed. So I sat down to try and think of some very practical to-dos that I could do in my parenting that would help me achieve this. And then thankfully, an answer was gently dropped into my heart. One of my very favorite verses, and one that is often in the back of my mind, Galatians 5:22-23 says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." There I had it, my 9 very practical to-dos. But the more I thought about these to-dos, the more challenging they began to feel. Patience, self-control, they were things that I really needed help with. But thankfully, another answer was dropped into my heart. These are the fruits of the Spirit, of His Spirit, not of my own. Yes, they're behaviors and ways of responding that I really need to practice, but by God's grace, they are already within me. After all, the Holy Spirit is the part of God that lives within us. So all we need to do is begin to tap into these wonderful qualities that God has placed in us. So I began to pray, and each morning now, before I even open my eyes, I pray for help to be intentional and purposeful in my parenting, to parent each day with love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. And guess what? As I became more intentional and purposeful in parenting with the fruits of the Spirit, I began to see all of those fruits in my girls. It wasn't coincidence. Since then, I've realized that my days tend to be one of 2 types. They're either fruitful days or frot fruit days. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the very commonly used South African term frot, frot means rotten. It's the fruit that lies in your fruit bowl that had those little midges flying around it that nobody will eat and that ends up in the bin. You don't want days like that. One of the factors that determines the fruitfulness of my day, I've noticed, is how I begin my day and how intentional I am in parenting with the fruit of the Spirit. I was thinking the other day, as adults, we invest so much of our time and our energy in our work. We spend years studying. We go on continuous professional development courses. We attend planning and strategy meetings. We work overtime. We're always available to answer a work-related query at the touch of a button. Imagine if we invested just as much time and energy and planning into our parenting. So, I thought that maybe while we are not distracted by work or by our kids, we could take a few moments to do some strategic planning together. Let's have a look at how we can practice the fruit of the Spirit in our parenting on a daily basis. Is everyone still with me? Good. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all 9 fruits because that would keep us here for a few hours. I'm just going to talk about the first 3 today: love, joy, and peace, and how can we parent with those. Of course, we all love our kids, that's a given. But in some moments, they are a little bit more difficult to love than others. And it's in these moments that they actually need our love the most. Who's familiar with Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 love languages? So he's written a brilliant book. I really recommend going and looking into it. There's the love languages for adults, but there's also a children's version of it. Because while loving our kids might feel like a natural thing to do, if we really take time to think how our children best receive love from us, each child is unique and they each have their very own love language. And if we can be intentional and purposeful in understanding that, we can parent so well with love. So I've got a little cheat sheet for you to help you find ways that say, I love you, in a way that your child best understands. So there are 5 love languages. You either best receive love through touch, words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, or acts of service. So if your child receives love best through touch, they're going to be the type of child who enjoys or seeks hugs, kisses, high fives, often asks to be carried or wants cuddles, loves rough and tumble kind of games, tag, catches, tickle games, anything where there's physical contact with you. So the kind of things you could do, holding hands, just giving them random hugs throughout the day, having family hugs, hand clapping games, tickling, rough and tumble, even just sitting close next to each other and reading. If your child receives love best through words, they're the kind of child who likes to hear they did a good job, they're appreciated, they're loved, that you think they're awesome. So give them love notes, compliments, say I love you often, encourage their effort, but be specific rather than giving general praise. So rather than saying, oh, that's a beautiful picture, say, I can see you worked so hard on that. You made it just how you want it to be. Make up silly songs about them. Children who respond and receive love most through quality time love to do things with you. They want your undivided attention and will try desperately to get it. They want to often be just near you or want you even just to be in the room present with them while they're playing and watch them do what they're doing. So having date days, special one-on-one times, making lots of eye contact, listening attentively to them, reading together, having special bedtime or morning time routines where they kind of, even if it's just 10 minutes, where it's just you and them and they know that it's special for them. Children who receive love best through gifts, which a lot of us think, oh, well, that's my kid. My kid always wants a new toy. But there are certain children who it lights up their eyes. You can see that they feel so loved when they receive something from you. They love surprises, treats, even things like having their favorite meal made for them makes them feel really loved. So you could give frequent but inexpensive homemade gifts. They don't need to get a new toy every day. Doing a little drawing for them, a love note, finding a little special stone while you're walking along the road and telling them that it's just for them, going shopping together, playing treasure hunt games. And finally, acts of service. This would describe children who like it when people do something really special or really helpful for them. So things you could do, making their favorite meal, playing or practicing a hobby with them, doing a project together, even just sitting with them and checking their homework, and also helping them to learn how to serve others and doing it alongside them. So if you take time to think, you will realize that your child fits one, probably more than one of those categories, but you can try and think what speaks best to your child. 1 Corinthians 13 verse 4 to 7 is a very well-known verse and one which I've used to describe parenting before. In this verse, God teaches us what love is. So if we want to parent with love, this is a great recipe. This is 1 Corinthians slightly adapted by me. A loving parent is patient and kind. A loving parent does not envy or boast. A loving parent is not disrespectful. A loving parent does not insist on their own way, is not easily angered, and keeps no record of wrongs. A loving parent patiently accepts all things. A loving parent always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Every child is unique, and so while we love all of our kids with all of our heart, if we are intentional and purposeful in speaking to them in their love language, how much more full are their love buckets going to be? The next fruit of the Spirit is joy. I think we often actually confuse joy with happiness. Happiness is a feeling that comes and goes with circumstance, but joy is something that is always available to us. Joy is not a momentary feeling that we only find on the good days. Joy is an eternal gift which we are free to live in daily. Jesus said, "These things that I have spoken to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full." But why do we find it so difficult some days to feel joyful? When last did you laugh, like truly laugh, so that your tummy hurt and your eyes watered? When we let ourselves become lost in the bombardment of life's circumstance, of work pressures, technological distractions, we let ourselves be connectable with the rest of the world 24/7, when we're exhausted and we overcomplicate what could actually just be simple things, we lose the joy in what could be a truly joyfully blessed life. Yes, some days joy does very easily get lost in the daily rush and the washing pile. But coincidentally or not, those are the days when my girls' listening ears get lost just as easily. I do know now that when I'm intentional in parenting joyfully, our days are filled with so much more laughter, and there's so many more I love yous and spontaneous hugs that I get from my girls. And even when their listening ears do get lost, because all kids' ears do get lost during the day, they're much easier to find. I shared some of my ways of parenting joyfully in one of my previous talks, and it can be found on the His Church London YouTube page. But I think one of my biggest lessons in parenting joyfully has been learning and practicing and repracticing and repracticing again, letting go of my unrealistic expectations of my children. They are children at the end of the day, and I think so often we just want them to be the people who we envisage one day they will be, that we forget that they're just kids. But also consciously choosing to embrace what really makes my girls giggle, and then trying to flip those more challenging and even the monotonous moments into more playful moments. So when my 3-year-old Amy somehow recently manages to move every conversation into an hysterical story about toilet humor, I'm trying my best to join in with her laughter, because yes, at the age of 3, the word poo-poo is a ridiculously funny word, especially when you know you shouldn't say it. And when my 5-year-old Hannah dramatically rolls her eyes at me in frustration, I'm trying to see her side of it. It's a new skill that she has acquired. It's very difficult to learn how to roll your eyes. And she has learned how to do this and loves practicing it. And it's one of the things that really gets to me. But I'm trying to see the funny side that she sees, and I'm trying to diffuse the situation and tell her off by tickling her rather than taking the bait and stepping into a battle. Sometimes we just need to dig a little deeper and rediscover our funny bone rather than take the bait and create a battle that doesn't need to be fought. And then there is peace, our peace. Looking back, pre-children, I realized there were quite a lot of peaceful moments. Those Sunday afternoons where you could lie and watch Friends reruns, or go on a beach holiday and actually lie on the beach. Post-children, the definition of peace is quite different. Managing to get a 5-minute uninterrupted shower becomes the new target. But God's peace for us is always available, even in the storm. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." God tells us to stop our frantic activity and to just trust Him that everything will be all right, regardless of what is happening around us. I'm learning that sometimes the best thing that I can do as a parent is to be still. Sometimes I need to just stop myself in my tracks, grab hold of my reaction before it comes out of my mouth, take a deep breath, and be still. Or, if I can't, remove myself from the room rather than letting it become a situation that it doesn't need to be. So I'm trying to teach our girls that our family is a team, and when you're part of a team, you're a team player. And to be a team player, one of your roles is to be a peacemaker. I know that the way I react or choose to respond to my girls has a huge impact on the peacefulness in our home. Yet frustratingly, I seem to have to remind myself just as much as I need to remind the girls about how to be a peacemaker some days. Our job as parents is not to stop our child's tantrum. It's to stop our own tantrum. In that moment, your child will see you being the person that you are hoping they will become. So let's have a look at how we might respond rather than react to some common scenarios. A reaction might be, stop it, stop crying right now. That kind of happens when crying's been going on for half an hour. But sometimes you can easily resolve it by saying, oh, you look really upset, or I know you're sad. Come here, and just pick your child up onto your lap. You could react with, what are you whining about now? Versus responding with, please use your calm, strong voice so that I can understand what you're trying to tell me. A reaction would be, I just told you to be careful. Now look, you've knocked your juice all over the table. Versus responding with a, oh dear, let's get some paper towel and then you can wipe up your juice. We often react with, I know it's not fair. Not everything is always going to be fair, especially in those sibling rivalries. But we could respond with, I can see you're really upset about my decision. I know you really don't feel like it's fair. Your responses make your child's feelings feel heard. We often might react with, I said stop it. Why don't you ever listen? Versus responding with, I'm feeling really frustrated right now, so I'm going to go out of the room and I will come back when I'm calm, and then we can sort this out. You can see how a reaction adds fuel to the fire versus a response makes your child feel heard and acknowledged. So if your child is misbehaving, the last thing on your mind might be cuddling them. However, for many kids, connection is exactly what they need in those big outburst moments. Sometimes the most effective response is momentarily looking past the behavior that is driving us crazy and simply connecting. And then you do the teaching later. By waiting or delaying your response doesn't mean that you're telling your child the behavior is okay. It just means you're waiting until your brain and your child's brain are able to receive information and move on peacefully, rather than being rude, angry, hurtful, or disrespectful to each other. We all want our kids to be obedient, but how much better would it be if rather than choosing to be obedient out of fear of an external consequence, they actually begin to learn to be obedient because they want to? It's a big mind shift and it takes a lot of practice. I'm still practicing to move from demanding obedience from your child to actually just inviting cooperation. But if you keep at it, and if you keep focusing on connecting with your child first, on understanding the need behind their behavior, inviting them to cooperate by responding to them rather than reacting to the behavior, your parenting days are going to be more fruitful. To parent fruitfully, you really do have to be intentional. We have to cultivate the fruit of the Spirit continually. We don't just produce them and ta-da, we've got them on tap whenever we need them. You really do need to work at it. Parenting fruitfully is a bit like choosing to follow a healthy eating lifestyle. It only works if you are consciously committed to it, if you put in the daily effort, if you stop yourself throughout the day from sliding back into those poor choices and old habits, and if you stick to it. So I haven't intended today to leave you feeling burdened or guilty, and I hope I haven't, but rather I want you to feel challenged and inspired to be more intentional and purposeful in your parenting. We're all doing on-the-job training, and you really are doing a good job. But yes, it is tough to find the time and the energy to sit down and plan and analyze your parenting, especially in those after hours. It takes up to 63 days to form a new habit. So just start one step at a time. And don't forget, most importantly, God's grace is new every day. Each day, thankfully, we get a fresh start and we get to refuel. And yes, some days we might mess up, some days we won't feel as able as others, but it's in the middle of our weakness that God always meets us with His grace. Philippians 4 verse 6 to 7 says, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand." So here's to being fruitful parents. Go out and be intentional and purposeful in what you do with your kids. Thank you.